Is this our stylus? So we don't use our little sticky fingers.
All right, welcome everybody. I'd like to call to order the Energy Awareness Commission meeting for Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. First item on the agenda is the approval of our minutes from our January 10th, 2023 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 10th, 2023.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second to approve our meeting minutes from January 10th, 2023. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 2.1 on the agenda is reports from officers, boards, and commissions. It's our usual CIP report for February. So, Derek, whenever you're ready.
As you can tell by the bullet points on the agenda, we've only rebated just under $16,000 so far this year, and most of that was in February. Kind of just a slow start to the year. Most of it has been with the rebates and natural gas programs for the most part, but as of this, just today, I think I rebated a lot of, appliances and some other things. So the electric rebates will be picking up pretty soon, especially with some industrial customers that you'll see in the upcoming months. We also have some home energy audits that are going to be conducted soon. We signed a contract with Center for Energy and Environment to conduct home energy audits. So we have maybe three or four lined up already, and then in the upcoming newsletter, I have an advertisement in there regarding home energy audits. And I just have another bullet point that, kind of like what I stated, most of what's been rebated has been natural gas programs, and that this is, for the last many years, this has been a voluntarily run program with the natural gas programs. So when the money's out for this year, then there won't be any more rebates given out for natural gas rebates. That's about it, kind of beginning of the year, so it's a little slow.
I have a few questions. Is the year the calendar year?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, and so we could give out 284,266.18 in rebates. And when you say natural gas rebate, exactly what because I'm looking at the list of rebates.
So the natural gas rebates would fall under furnace, check and clean, the furnace rebates. It was steam. I wrote an email about that to find out. If you look at the steam rebate that used to come out of the natural gas funds, what was meant to happen, and I think will happen, is to carry funds over from 2022 into 2023. But that doesn't happen until, I think it happened this last Public Utilities Commission meeting, where they asked for the approval for the carryovers. So that funds will be in here. But now we've asked the district energy, the water district energy department, to fund the steam program. Okay, so that used to come out of the natural gas programs, but no longer does. And the water heater, and also the programmable thermostats, all are funded through the natural gas department, their funds.
So this money is available for residents of New Ulm to purchase energy efficiencies
Yep.
that qualify. And I see the energy audit is in there, but is the audit free to the residents?
Right. So the first few years we did this, we would charge if there was direct installs that accompanied the energy audit. So we could do more energy audits for more people. We asked the customers to pay $100. So those direct installs would have been actions taken
as a
besides a
result of the
blower door
audit?
test and visual inspections from the auditors, such as installing LED lighting, looking at weather stripping on windows and doors, water heater setback, and then checking some other things.
Caulking.
Yep. So those would be considered the direct installs or programmable thermostat. Those are all things that were offered. So they were paying $100 for possibly all these direct installs and the energy audit. So that could be, they would have been paying $100 for something that could have been like 800 plus, because the energy audit itself could be $500 range. But now we are not doing direct installs, and we're just paying 100% of the energy audit and not doing direct installs. So, so to summarize this, you have on the left-hand column of would be the monetary part. The total balance was just over $300,000 that we have set aside for the programs. And of that 300,000, the natural gas portion of that is anywhere between 32,000 and 40,000. So a bulk of it is coming from the electric department.
Do you ever look at, or can somebody who's building a home show you plans and see, kind of a pre-construction energy audit to see if they're doing things and using things?
They
that
could,
be?
they could, but
Wouldn't be really useful, you don't
It-
think? Or?
So all these programs, for the most part, are meant to capture savings. So without direct installs, energy audit is just more of an educational piece for the customer. We don't get any energy savings from conducting energy audits.
Right.
That's why when we first initially did those, we did direct installs, because at least we'd be capturing some sort of energy savings. Because there's, up until, roughly this year, sorry, next year, there's two main components to these programs. It was money spent and energy captured. So for on the electric side, we had to capture 1.5% energy savings from a 3-year average, and then we had to put into these counts 1.5% of our revenue. So with gas, it's a little different. You still have to capture 1.5% savings from a 3-year average of sales, but the money put into those programs is 0.5% of revenue. So it's less, and it's harder to capture those savings based on the money that we put in. But state statutes say that a utility has to offer natural gas programs as long as they sell over 1 billion cubic feet of natural gas. We do not do that most years. Actually, since 2006, we've only done that 3 times. So I don't know if it was last meeting, a few meetings ago, we had some statistics on that. And since 2006, we've either used for advertising or given back to customers over $1 million. So according to state statutes, we are only required to put in like $110,000 to $115,000. So kind of a little history on that and these accounts and why natural gas is only about 30 some thousand dollars, and the rest is 240 some or more is from the electric department. Yep.
If some items, I'll just say, let's say the furnace cleaning rebate gets spent out, but another line item, let's say miscellaneous rebates and program doesn't, is there flexibility to move money from
I
one
look at
pot?
the overall account. So say the first check and clean, there's the original budget was almost $6,600. If we're in the negative number there, but there's additional monies in a different natural gas account, we keep going. We keep issuing the first check and cleans. But we won't be dipping into, say, there's money associated with air conditioning rebates. I won't be taking money from the natural gas fund or the electric funds for the natural gas accounts. Because one reason for that is now I'm taking away the possibility of not meeting that actual requirement under state statutes. Because like I had just stated, most years we're not actually required through state statutes to even offer these programs, let alone we voluntarily put the money in and we voluntarily give the state our energy savings and money spent from that because it helps them out. But if I'm using electric funds for that, could be shorting the utility the capturing those savings for the electric programs.
And is there information that'll be going out to talk about the energy audits and how people can request them?
In the next newsletter, I have something that should be going out. It should hopefully be approved tomorrow with our edits from who helps us with that. And then, it could take 2 or 3 weeks to get printed and then mailed out. And then after that, then it'll be on Facebook also, which hopefully we get some more people signed up for that because we're trying to utilize that as a whole, not just for rebates and other things, but if there's a neighborhood out with a water leak or who knows what, to post it on there.
So, Derek, did I understand you right then? If the steam rebate gets changed, then we'll have funds for like electric, natural gas, and then
Yeah, so
district-
technically, like in years past, we've used those funds with the steam, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't actually budget anything from that natural gas funds into the steam, which is why it was 0 on here. So those funds got shifted percentage-wise into those other natural gas programs.
Any other questions or discussion about the CIP report?
And what does
No, it's okay.
CIP stand for?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What does CIP?
It's a
stand-
conservation improvement program.
Conservation improvement.
Yep.
And really as I looked at this information, just reflecting on when we met with you, if I understand it correctly, we could be, as a committee or commission, helpful in advertising and promoting and doing public education on these programs.
Sure.
'Cause don't we have some interest? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Good. Okay.
All right.
I'll make the motion to approve the February CIP accounts report.
I second.
We have a motion and second to approve the February CIP accounts report. Any other questions or discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, under new business then, 4.1, our EV or electric vehicle charging location data. And I
I've had-
believe,
yeah,
believe we have 2 of these stations.
Yeah, there's 2 locations. So at other times, people on the commission have asked about our EV charging stations. So I was able to gather some data. So there's 2 locations. There's one, it has an address, but I can't remember what exactly it is. But it's right across the street from German Park.
Yeah.
Right on the corner of the city's public parking area. It's a charge point charger. That's kind of nice because that actually has some software we can use, which is where I got this information under the 2022 stats on the ChargePoint EV location. We'll just start with that. So the KWH and the MWH. So KWH is kilowatt hour, MWH is megawatt hour. Pretty much you just divide by 1,000. So the kilowatt hours for 2022, well, there was 1,988. That was cars took out of the charging machine. This GFG should be greenhouse gases, GHG. That was kind of a typo on my part. So that's a savings. So with these electric vehicles that use that charging location, in 2022, used that much electricity, and they saved 1,419 kilograms of greenhouse gases off of 157 sessions, which means that's how many times people used it. And the unique drivers would be people that have accounts with ChargePoint. So that, to me, that would mean that out of those 50 drivers, they came more, some multiple times for a total of 157 sessions. So, and the one last one, that's the greenhouse gas savings since the lifetime of that charging station, which was 2017 it was installed. So that's just a little bit tidbit from the ChargePoint location. The Zeph Energy location is what we installed in 2021, that I was able to get some Volkswagen money, settlement money to get that installed. Zeph Energy was the company in the state in Minnesota that kind of was awarded the bid to get that money and get these charging stations put out throughout the state.
Made a lot of sense.
Yep. So it was in that, the state of Minnesota did a good job doing it that way. Other than other states, I heard that they did things differently and was not as smoothly. So,
Where's that one?
so
at?
this one is also, it's actually just right over here,
It's in this parking lot.
east. New Ulm north, but
Our
really
side of it.
west. It's in this parking lot here,
Turn in to go
on what would be First North.
right there.
Yep.
Is there a charge for those? I've never really looked at
I believe there's not a charge for the level 2, but there is for the fast charging.
Okay.
It's kind of the
And
gimmick.
Zeph is fast charging?
Sorry, what was that?
Is Zeph fast charging?
Yes. So the charge point is just kind of an original level 2 charging, and the Zeph Energy one is a couple ports for level 2, and then a fast, at least one, if not two, fast charging. I think it's 2 location fast charging, but just due to how much energy they use, you might only be able to do one at a time, if I'm not
How does it
mistaken.
work? Someone just charges and pays on their credit card then, or?
I think there's a few different options depending on the type of charger, the company. And like ChargePoint, I think you might have to actually have a card with them. Otherwise, I think you might be able to use a credit card.
So
I don't have an EV.
does ours charge? Ours does charge? Meaning,
Yes.
I'm saying it wrong.
Yes.
If people went to the Zeph, they'd have to pay for it with a credit card.
Yeah, they'd have to pay for it one way. Yep. And same with the ChargePoint. Yes.
Are those things universal so that any brand of electric car can use
Some
them?
some are. Some cars come with the different adapters also, I believe,
Oh, okay.
so that they can, yeah. So I think like Tesla charging stations are only going to work with Tesla cars, I believe.
Okay.
But ones like this are more universal because they want to be able to.
Can
cater
Tesla
to-
cars use these too, though? do you know?
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I've seen them there. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and this
Sure did it.
this is a little. I'm pretty sure about the statistics with the Zeph, but it gets tricky because I don't get the data that I can from the ChargePoint. So this is readings based off the electrical meter at that location. But for the most part, I'm sure it's totaling energy the machine itself is using with the internal computers and whatnot. But it can't, considering the amount of energy that's gone through it, it's mostly, mostly the charging of the car, but that's 26,500 kilowatt hours. Yeah, and so it's saved 4,343 greenhouse gas kilograms. So it's getting used quite more often than I believe the ChargePoint, which it's right off of Broadway rather than down a few blocks. And it's got the fast charging, which I think a lot of people are looking for now, rather than waiting for. I think I did some statistics in a ChargePoint, and they gave you averages of the average time people sit and whatnot. But there's, from 20 minutes to somebody sitting there for 3 hours, depending on, what they need to charge, how long they want to charge, So, yeah, and I just totaled out how many miles people have driven based on those charges and based off of just some statistics I found from online, which I thought was interesting. That the So the 26,500 kilowatt hours traveled allowed these drivers, if you combine them all, to travel 7,571 miles. It's kind of interesting. But this isn't a voting thing, it's just people have asked about it, so I got those statistics together.
Is there anything we need to do as a commission to think about advertising? I mean, I feel like people who have EVs, my sister and brother-in-law do, they know where
They
need to
know
go,
where stuff goes.
because they're not going to go from Rochester to here.
There's
if
people, I
not-
mean, there's people that find out that there's a new charging location somewhere and they'll purposely drive there and check it out.
yeah,
And I've noticed that
probably
just
will the next time.
I've just noticed that with, there's websites and online apps that people can go to and leave their comments on how their experience was, and that's how
Some cars tell you,
oh, sure, yeah.
yeah, so you
So-
don't have to guess. They'll give you a map,
Yeah.
how to get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think MnDOT also at one point had a online map where they were mapping these out. I know I seen it at one time, and at the time I seen it, the Zeph charging location was on there, but not the other one. And they were specifically, I think, for people traveling, because they had like a whole path of, go down this way. This is where they are. So.
Oh, that's good to know.
And will the infrastructure bill, well, I know there's money all over the place now for building out kind of an EV infrastructure, so will there be, I don't know if we need more.
I don't know if we need more. Once more
Cars come online.
once more of the retailers, the dealerships start selling more, they're gonna have them also, you'd assume. So it's kind of getting that money, when they were giving the first rounds out of the, with Zeph Energy, they had corridors where they kind of had planned out where they wanted them. And New Ulm was on the map, which is kind of why I went for it. Others maybe would have had to wait for round two, but I think they have certain locations where they want them. So the fact that we had one already that first round, and we had, the utility had purchased it on their own, that charge point, it might be hard to go after it for other, and it still costs the utility a little bit of money, even if we get it free, because we'd have to install things. We probably, the Zeph Energy one, I think we even purchased a pad mount transformer for it, which is not cheap. So, unfortunately, there's the financial payback of it on the utility side when you have to put up a extremely large pad mount transformer. You more than likely aren't going to get a payback for decades. But that's not why we did it. We
Well,
did
there's
it because
payback,
it's
but it just doesn't go into our
right.
account.
There's the economic development portion, and that's kind of why we went with it, and said, because we didn't have to purchase the pad mount, but we did because it was just an incentive for Zeph Energy to put it here. So yeah, there's obviously more to it than that, but.
I think if I remember some of the conversation when that one came up, part of the reason behind that too was they went kind of above and beyond, so that if they wanted to add another one,
That's
there
true.
would be less infrastructure cost.
Right.
'Cause it
Yeah,
would
because that's a
already
big
be-
thing when people, you sit through these items with EV charging, that's one thing these nonprofits that deal with it a lot, they talk about is if you're doing something, think about putting that infrastructure in then, because if you have to go back, you may have to dig up a street or concrete, and you have added cost, and if you do it later on, like a lot of things, especially in utility, it's always going to be more expensive. Well, so.
Everything.
Like everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Any other questions or discussion on the EV charging data? Otherwise, I guess it'd be looking for motion just to approve.
I move approval of the EV charging location data report.
I'll second it.
Here we have a motion and second to approve the EV charging location data. Any other questions or discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries. All right, on to some Green Steps cities information. So, best practice 16.6.
This best practice falls under the Environmental Management, Community Forests and Soils. Action specifically mentions adopting an EAB plan, Emerald Ash Borer plan. The City of New Ulm, with guidance and much work from the Tree Advisory Commission, established this plan back in 2018. And this best practice 16 is one that, if I'm not mistaken, we have actually completed. So it's just kind of an addition onto that group of actions from best practice 16. So where we're pretty much hitting this is with the actual plan. I think I had put some, maybe I didn't on here. Usually I put the star levels, and because those star levels, there's a 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star to a lot of these actions within a best practice, and it's good, better, best type star. So we'll at the least get a 1-star for sure, if not 2. It's all depending on how they see it. But just having that EAB plan will complete that action. And the attachments to this agenda are exactly that, is the EAB plan, which is why it's so thick. Well, the other one's thick, but why the, what is this? 10, 12 pages. So that's what I'd be attaching to an email to Green Step City's coordinator. Can't answer much questions about the EAB plan. I did sit through them discussing it, but I did not make any actions within the plan, so I cannot answer anything, or not much at least, within that plan.
Who did the plan?
Tree Commission.
The Tree Commission did, and a lot of other, majority helped, I believe, with it, right? No? At
Yep.
that time you
Shane,
were with.
Shane did.
Shane,
and
yeah,
then I
Shane.
had went through it, I think, 2,
Yeah.
if not 3 times before as well. So,
So we end up with it because it's one of the requirements of the Green Step cities.
It's just within the overall, yeah. So within the Green Steps, you have different best practices, and within the best practices, you have different actions that,
Tom, if you go down, you'll see this.
Next.
You have
Oh,
to do this
mine
next.
doesn't do that. Or if it does, I don't see it.
so
Oh, and then
Up here.
any other questions or discussion related to best practice 16.6?
So you're submitting this one, right?
yeah, so it's
Okay.
just the approval that the EAC, Energy Awareness Commission's fine with the attachment for this best practice in action.
I didn't read. Jordy, did you read this? Not to,
Couple years ago, yes. Yeah, I think I've actually read through it twice when they were working through it. So, yep.
not to put you on the spot, but I know you know about trees, so.
Yep, no problem.
I'll make the motion to approve Green Step Cities BP 16.6.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve Green Steps Cities Best Practice 16.6. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Continuing on with the Green Steps Cities then, Best Practice 16.7, dealing with a city tree inventory.
Yeah, I'm just going to back up 1 second. We actually had 16.6. We actually did have. So this would probably bumped it up, because I have my sheet here, from 2 stars to probably 3 stars with that EAB. So, I mean, and I wanted to bring that up because that's another thing with the Green Step cities is just because if you've accomplished something and did something with an action or something within it, the point of it is you can come back and you can improve upon things and move forward.
How
So
many stars can we get total?
well, I mean, each action is 3 stars. Yeah, so that's the highest for each
Love
action.
getting stars.
You're there already.
So yeah, sorry. Back to 16.7. This falls underneath the same best practice of 16, the environmental management, community forests and soils. And this action requires the city to conduct a tree inventory within public and private trees. The city of New Ulm and the Tree Advisory Commission pretty much did all public trees. I don't recall how many private trees, other than if they were voluntarily given, because I think they also had forms for people to submit tree inventories on their property. But I don't think that the city actually went into individuals' properties to identify their trees.
It was a simplified survey
Yeah,
that got sent
right.
out to private property owners.
Which
So
I think well, it may not be on the agenda, but I do actually have that, which I was going to attach to the other extremely large packet that's on this agenda. And, excuse me, so there was over 9,000 trees that were put into the inventory. And within, to summarize this large sheet, kind of what's, if you go down to the columns and rows, it consisted of the tree species. It's hard to see, but I'm sure it's the scientific name and the common, maple, whatever, and type, crown width, health of tree, such as if there's bird damage, fungus decay, and other aspects were put into that inventory. So that will be sent to the Green Step Cities coordinator to get credit for that action.
Is that inventory list going to be kept up to date when they cut down a tree? Does it get taken off of that inventory? Or when they plant new, do new ones go
I'm
on?
sure on the city side, yeah. I don't recall, because the boulevard trees would have been done also. So I believe they would be,
To keep it current?
yeah.
yeah, that was. I
That was
think
the
they're-
intent. I guess I'm not within that department, so I can't verify if it's actually being done or not. But the intent was that.
Did I read somewhere that Green Steps wants inventories every 5 years, or was I imagining
I
that?
think it was, the inventory needed to be done within the last 5 years.
Okay.
I think that was the requirement. So it couldn't be an inventory from, 15 years ago.
Oh, here it is, that is less than 10 years old.
Or maybe it was 10 years, yeah. Which this would meet that quality, and this would fall underneath that.
Conduct public property tree inventories every 5 years here. Star level examples. It says, conduct a tree inventory that incorporates private property to better understand trees in the whole community. Conduct a community-wide tree canopy study. Conduct public property tree inventories.
Yeah,
every
so the
5
stars
years.
didn't show up, but this, where it says best practice action 7, star level, so this would be conduct a tree inventory or canopy study on public properties that are less than 10 years old. At the minimum, that's a 1 star. So there's a space here, which the stars never show up because I pretty much take it directly off their website. The conduct a tree inventory that incorporates private property to better understand trees in the whole community. Yada yada, that's star level 2, and then that third, it would be the 3 star.
So we don't need to redo.
No, a community doesn't have to redo anything unless they choose to. So once you submit something, if it's approved and it's 1 star, you can totally move away with it if you so please.
And then, did Shane do all the data input?
He would have been the major one doing that, yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's 9,000
Yeah,
Yes,
that
that's-
was his
yeah.
job for a few years because they Green Corps member,
Yep.
and then they applied again and were able to get him back for another term. So he had a few years to be able to do this. I can't remember how many years. 2?
Uh,
At least it was at
It
least
was at
two,
least
or at
two.
least 2 times that they
Yeah,
So
so we did, yeah, I think he was here for probably about 3.
yeah.
I think it was like about two summers that we worked on the inventory, so.
Yep.
What really worked in our neighborhood was one guy right across the street took the lead and took 2 pretty big ones down, and then it just kept spreading both directions from his house.
Hmm.
And now I think and that was in October, kind of late. He must have taken 6 trees at least, some big ones out. Same provider. He just kept going door to door, just left his truck there. And it's like it kind of catches on when one neighbor does it, then the rest look at their trees. And I know another one that's coming down as soon as spring comes. He was giving everybody reasonable prices, working fast, and he teamed it, and it just happened.
So these were diseased trees
Yes,
or?
definitely.
I see.
But they'd all greened out last summer, but in the fall, it started and it went fast. Just house to house, tree to tree.
Really?
I couldn't believe how
Interesting.
quickly some of those trees went.
Yeah, I suspect from what I saw the tail end of last summer, there's gonna be a lot of them this spring, summer.
And is it,
So-
this is all emerald ash borer?
Yep.
Do people replant different species then, or?
Got a pretty good tree cover already in the neighborhood, but yes, some are, some aren't. Depends how many trees they've already got.
Yep.
But if they really want trees and they kind of lost everything, those are the ones that are gonna go for little ones.
Got it.
Right, any other questions or discussion about Green Step City's best practice 16.7?
I move we accept the practice.
Motion, do we have a second?
A second?
Motion and second to approve Green Step City's best practice 16.7. Any other questions or discussion? Right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 4.4 on the agenda is a cogeneration report. I believe this has to deal with renewable energy produced and sold back to the city.
Yeah, it is anything that's co-generating, which means it's connected to our infrastructure, pretty much. So the below item was, I presented this, and it was approved by the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission at their February 28th, 2023 regular meeting. I've only attached a portion of the agenda item because there was actually much more to this when I presented it to the commission. So what this is, it's an annual coal generation report that was at one time always sent to the Minnesota Department of Commerce on behalf of the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission back in 2018 or 19. We were changing over the process, and at that time, we were allowed to have a local governing body oversee the process and also receiving this report, which is why I brought it to the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission. So it's something they'll be receiving each year. And included with this that's always included each year, is the schedule fees, the rates for the net energy billing, anything associated with that, and all the paperwork and the process that a person would need to go through if they were going to have a DER, a distributed energy resource. which includes many things, but mostly New Ulm would be solar. So all that paperwork was given to them to acknowledge and approve that they received it. And along with that also, which would be in the next newsletter, is there will be a blurb in the newsletter regarding a notification to the general public that we accept solar interconnections under this, proper application process and fees and things like that. So that's all the stuff that you didn't get here, but what is attached is something that's a little more interesting. It's the summary of what's occurred so far through 2022 in New Ulm. The net energy billing, so under the solar portion of this cogeneration report, under net energy billing is the accounts, and they're unique accounts, I guess you could say. They were initially started with number 1, which was the first solar hookup in New Ulm. They're no longer on here because these are only the active accounts. So that account number 1 was decommissioned a few years back. That was the putting green, which is no longer around, which is now the community. That location is now the community garden on the south end of town. So that's why there's no number 1. There is another number that's missing in here. That's just because it was an application that was given a number that was not yet completed in 2022, but has now since been completed, which is why that number, I think it's 17.
Yeah.
Right. So there's 17, 18 active accounts at the end of 2022. Facility capacity, that's a kilowatt AC power of that system. There's also 2 or 3 locations in town that actually have had initially installed solar and came back at a later date and added on to that solar. The way that's reported on a different report to the Department of Commerce is each of those is given a unique account. So while there's 17 or 18 accounts on here, there's 2 or 3 of those locations that actually have 2 accounts on here because they've added on. So then you had the year that they were interconnected, what rate class they kind of fall under, if it's a residential location or commercial location. The estimated production of that solar system throughout the year. So if there was a production meter associated with that, it's estimated that solar array would have produced that much electricity. The recorded excess.
2022.
2022. This is just 2022. This is not the lifespan of the system. The recorded excess is the energy that we purchased back from that location, and then the excess purchase is what we purchased it back at, and then the totals are on the bottom. So in 2022, we purchased back just over $8,000 of excess energy from those locations, which was 64,649 kilowatt hour. So yeah, and then there are I guess the rates are on top of this also, as of 2022.
So another role of this commission is to make people aware of, I guess it would be net metering then. Is that correct? Am I using the right term? And that they can make installations and get a net buyback if they produce excess power in excess of what
They
they
can
use
if it's under 40 kilowatts.
annually.
The system itself, 40 kilowatts.
All right. Do we do much by way of letting folks know about that, or? That's where new home builders as well, I would think. I don't know.
Yeah.
We put things in once in a while in the newsletter. That's about it.
Okay.
There was something given to the realtors. Was that this or was that?
I gave something to the realtors, letting them know that if they're selling a house with solar, that they should let the potential buyers know that the new purchaser would have to sign a contract with the utility. Because each solar location signs a contract with the utility, because technically they're buying their own power, they're supplying their own power, which they have a right to do, but they're using the utilities infrastructure
Sure, for the-
to sell their power back to us. So they're using the utilities infrastructure, which technically is owned by the community that pays for it, and essentially they're not paying for, as of really right now, they're not paying for the infrastructure to use that. So I'll be honest, that's one reason why utilities are hesitant to advertise solar energy. Especially since we ourselves are, by state requirements, by 2040, had to be 100% carbon free. So there's different angles you can think of regarding solar and what angle you want to go by. There's the utilizing it to fight climate change, and then there's a financial portion of it on the utility, and then there are ratepayers that can't afford it and can't utilize it. So there's lots of different angles you can think of. It's
Do you
on
think
what
that's ever gonna
spectrum.
happen?
What's that?
Do you think that's ever going to happen by 2040?
You dang
It has to
right.
be. What? You don't have a choice. It has to
No,
be.
but
There's different ways you can do it. I mean, there's renewable energy credits. There's other building your own, buying it on the market. It's going to be its own kind of beast.
So we need to really,
What I think this commission should do is tell people that the best way to fight climate change is to not use as much electricity and not be wasteful on many different levels. I mean, you look at this Green Step cities, there's stuff on here on farmers markets, there's stuff on here on, I mean, if you really look at what's in here,
yeah,
it's trying to keep stuff as local as you can get, and many other different aspects that I think you'll find out more once you get to one of the final steps in this, and finding out how much carbon reduction some of these actions have, what they've done.
so things like promoting energy audits.
I mean, if this
that-
commission wants to promote solar, you have every right to do that. I'm just saying that as a, utility, I think, and as a commission, and what this was brought up for was to reduce electricity, save people money. But I think now it's trying to reduce carbon footprint as much as possible. And I'm not saying solar and any type of renewable energy is part of the mix, but it's kind of just, it's also, and this is just a personal opinion, it's not really speaking for the utility when I'm talking about climate change or, renewable energy. I think it's part of the bigger picture, it's part of the solution, but it's also partially a Band-Aid of what the real issue is. And that's, people over consuming things that they don't need, and
Or not building homes and new
or not
buildings.
reusing homes that are already built and retrofitting and things like that. So I think that alone is a bigger issue than trying to push solar, because that's gonna I think that's gonna happen on its own.
So like the energy audit is a good thing for us to promote, the rebates,
Right.
which include.
Well, and there's a lot of, stuff going on downtown that I need to focus on too, of getting, like at the utility, we say we're always the last ones to know on some things. We find out that buildings getting redone, you find out when you notice there's a truck and dumpster outside, when, maybe we need to advertise more. Hey, if you're going to be doing this, come talk. I got some money that I'm supposed to give away, to try to get these people, because the biggest energy hogs out there are probably, buildings, HVAC, so, as for renewable energy, like I said, 2040, we need to be carbon free, which, we've been talking before this even occurred, what we need to do and what we should be doing, because you also have commercial and industrial customers, not let alone, residential customers that maybe want solar gardens, but you have industrial and commercial customers that have deadlines and requirements from corporate offices not in the state or somewhere else that say, we need to do this, we want to do this, whether it's because they really want to do it or whether it's a marketing, whatever, maybe at least they're doing it right. So, there's a lot of different needs that we need to meet too. And so if we are 2040 carbon free or sooner, anyone that wants to put that up on their own house is, I guess that's their choice. So,
So I should read the I should read all of the opportunities or options in the, what's it called? The green steps.
yeah, I mean, right now, I think like what I stated when we kind of met initially a few weeks back was we're still kind of in the process of finding out what we're doing, but that doesn't need to stop us from just saying, I want to hit this. This looks like it's something that's real, proactive, and we can do that. We don't have to just sit here and look, okay, what have we done? We've kind of done that the last few years. We've gotten a good jump on, what we've done to where we are. So I think it's going and digging into whatever this commission wants to dig into.
Well, I will just state that I think there's huge opportunity for a lot of education on things like floor door tests and ways to retrofit houses to be more energy efficient. And I just speak from personal experience, having done that in Montana, and instantly seeing savings. And I live it real life and seeing that every time we turn over a unit, we could be installing, we get new appliances, but, and I'm the treasurer, I sign the checks, I see what we're paying. So it's like, well, as a cooperative, we could decide that we're going to only get certain types of appliances when we have to trade those out. Or that when we replace, well, we already did do light fixture replacements in the main areas. We have a few more places that we have to swap out, but that's just a tiny example of what can be done to reduce energy
Right.
consumption without, without
Right.
generating any solar, without
Right.
generating.
Well, I mean, even if somebody does want to do solar, something they should think of is what they can do internally to reduce their load,
Yes,
because then you wouldn't have to possibly have such a big of a system for solar, So, I mean, not trying to deter anybody to talk about solar. It certainly can, but that's another angle that we could use with solar. Is if it's something you're thinking of, maybe you want to look at your building envelope and
Yep.
getting it sealed and getting the proper things corrected before you do that.
Yep.
And know that, if you're going to do solar, maybe prep beforehand and get that heat pump water heater, get things changed over before you get it, then getting the system and say, okay, now I want to add on more electrical things, and then your system's not able to carry all that. So,
and we can find online what appliances qualify for rebates? Is
Yeah,
that
I had a
correct?
quick guide put up on the website that kind of gives what's what.
Yep.
Because before it was pretty cut and dry, but then we went to an online fillable form, and somehow that information was kind of lost. It's there, but you have to actually click on things and know what you've already purchased. So say you're an individual who just wants to get an idea of, I'm looking to buy this. What do I get for a rebate? It's not there unless you type it in. It's not readily, easily, visible.
Gotten any better?
What was that?
Has that gotten better, or is it still a problem?
The online forums?
Trying to find out a particular item, how energy efficient it is.
Oh, no.
You were saying that it's difficult. No?
For the customer to locate on the form, yes. But now we have, like I said, that quick facts guide that's right there along with the forms that they
Okay,
can
now
click
I'm
on.
aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion.
I'll move up.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second to receive and order file the annual cogeneration report. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5 on our agenda is commissioner comments. I believe you-
I was just going to mention that the League of Women Voters is interested in kind of taking some of this energy awareness topic to task this year. And so we're working on coming up with a community forum of some type with people speaking and being able to answer questions. So hopefully that will happen sometime, maybe in the fall.
So I missed that meeting. Did they talk expressly about educating people on, or I guess that's yet to be decided?
I brought it up at the meeting because I thought it would be something that would be useful for the commission to check off. And I just think it's something that's interesting and important. And so I've got a committee that's started, and
Can I join that committee?
I think didn't I send that to you? I think I sent
I
that to you.
think you did,
I think, yeah, we're going to meet for the first time next Tuesday, I think maybe. Anyway, so that's what's going on. And I don't know how it's going to look yet. That's why we're getting together. They were the ones that expressed interest. We've got about 6 people, I think. 5.
We might want to review Green Steps and
Mm-hmm.
look at how can we amplify the things that would be helpful to this commission,
Mm-hmm.
but that's doable.
Right, and things that, because this was a time I thought would be a time to inform the people too. Kind of like the mayoral forums that we had, people could ask questions and hear what had been done, what their dreams were, that kind of thing. And so a lot of people don't really know what's been going on. I happened to notice the EV stations, but otherwise, if I hadn't been walking around, I wouldn't know that we had any. So that's the idea, is to inform people.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So it's a good group to
Cool.
do it, I think.
Yeah,
So
cool.
that's all I had.
Any other commissioner comments or questions?
Well, I just know I'm going to check out the Green Steps, and I hope that either as a commission or with the league, we can come up with a plan to really promote the blower door test, the energy audits, so that people can do more by way of identifying how they can retrofit. It seems like, I think people might think, oh, I need to replace my windows, or they have an idea that they want to make their homes more energy efficient, but sometimes their plans may not square with like the easiest, least expensive, biggest bang for your buck kind of thing, which you learn when you're doing those
Right.
energy audits. So
Yeah, and they get a nice report from Center for Energy and Environment, which, I mean, I can get rid of any private information within those reports, and it's something I could put on the next agenda.
They're quite actionable.
Oh, yeah, yep, So-
They'll say in priority order.
right, which I think I've brought it to the commission before, but, we have new members now, so it's good to, yeah.
Do you ever, or does anybody ever talk to the contractors in the area for like new buildings? With the idea that it'd be nice to have a sheet that you could give them and say,
Best
when
practices.
people are
What-
looking at furnaces, when they're looking at water heaters, when they're looking at all these things, this is a breakdown of how much they're gonna save monetarily and how much the energy is gonna cost. I mean,
Yeah,
all these
there's
different
some-
things would be good to
yeah.
have.
We'll have to look to see what type of new building, because within, I think the Department of Commerce doesn't like the money going to certain contractors. They want to, like, somebody just builds a home and leaves. They don't want that money going to that person. They want it going to the person that's going to own it type thing.
Well, maybe
I'll
we
have to
hand it out
double
with the
check.
building
Yeah,
permits,
right.
The person that's actually getting the building.
Right,
permit.
so that we can focus on the people that we need, that we can rebate
Right.
to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, though, yeah,
Realtors, Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Builders, contractors. That to me is.
Yeah, and
another
it gets tricky.
community.
Yeah, I'll have to word it because it gets tricky with some of the things we could rebate for because there's not programs established for certain things. They're called custom rebates, kind of.
Oh.
So it's kind of like, well, like with some of the industrial customers, it's like, so what'd you do this year? We did this, this, and this. Okay, I think that could. Let's do some math, math, and look to see what some other places have done and try to figure out what, like I tell them, if there's energy savings, there's probably a really high likelihood I can rebate for that. And that dollar amount comes on based on how much savings is captured from that. So, it's not as easy as saying with some of these, like if they're putting in a residential type furnace, then that's easy. There's something established, okay, here's the SEER number for the AC unit. So, it's different if they're putting in this whole different big air handler unit up on top of a roof type thing. So I think the biggest thing is just getting out and letting them know, if you're putting this type of equipment in, contact us. We might be able to, that's probably, at least off the top of my head, that's what I'm thinking. But if there's any other ideas, get together and figure something out. Because that are, the commercial and industrial customers are where you get the most savings also. So if there's money left over at the end of the year, say it's $60,000 or 80, which is kind of a lot. To me, that always means that the industrial customers weren't either
aware.
doing much or they didn't bother to contact us. It wasn't worth their time to, so
Are some of the developers in town savvy on this stuff?
some are, and some just don't want to deal with it. Yeah. Yeah, there's some people that are really good. Yep.
Because there's a lot of stuff happening in
Right.
Walm.
Yep. And that's what I kind of was
Retrofitting
getting at,
systems.
earlier with the downtown and being the last to know. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, what are you doing? And, because a lot of these places have steam. It's like, are you tearing it out? Because now you're not going to ever get that payback. I have money to get it back to where it needs to be. So, you'd think it'd be easier to give people money, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're filling up for a grant or a loan.
I think
There's not that much red tape.
I think a water heater goes, you have to replace your water heater.
Right.
You're not gonna spend time, well, I'm gonna start spending more time on the website, making sure I know which ones are rebate eligible.
Yeah, and we try to, depending on like what's going on within the utility as a whole, but we try to get a lot in the newsletter. This next newsletter, I can't say that because we're focusing a lot on lead and water service lines and things like that. But that goes to 6,500 people, And if it's in there, but not everybody, I don't know what percentage of that number actually bother to look at it. So it's, yeah. Between that and then maybe utilizing the newspaper more, the KNEJ, but you can get it out there, but it's whether or not they get it or not, I don't know.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I'd be looking for motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.